Estoy acá en la librería, Changing Hands Bookstore, esperando a Geddy. Llegué temprano porque me confundí con el horario, pensé que había 2 horas de diferencia de 4 horas, así que es temprano, así que vamos a esperar.
Yeah.
Hey, Geddy!
Hi, Geddy.
Thank you for coming to Tempe. Thank you.
Hi, Geddy. Look at you, your heart racing.
When I'm zoomed in, I want to use the tripod.
Okay, come on up.
Sorry Geddy, only shaking hands, I'm from Argentina.
And once I had an inordinate number of bases, it became clear that I needed to justify my obsession, and that justification turned into this book. This book is about collecting. It's about the golden age, to borrow Terry Foster's term, of vintage bases. Primarily, it's about that. It's also about the disease, which is collecting, and what makes collectors motivated. So it is for collectors, but it's also for anyone that appreciates the artfulness and the beauty of an electric instrument. It's also for Rush fans that want some insight into the instruments I use, because I have used for over 40 years, because I have a section that goes into depth about all my tools before I became a vintage guitar nut. Some people will come to this book as Rush fans and maybe not bass fans per se, and other people would just be drawn by the art because the photography is stunning, and Richard Sibbel really outdid himself shooting these basses, and some of those photographs stand alone as beautiful pieces of art. We started adding bits and bobs of information, sometimes minuscule things that will only appeal to the most nerdy of nerds. Okay, so this is the memorabilia envelope. You can tell because it says memorabilia.
Oh, that's what that's about.
And so we'll put all the freebies and things in here, like such as. And sometimes just general potted histories, so that you have some context. If you're looking at, this beautiful Hagstrom over here, for example, what is that thing? Where did it come from? Who made it? So sometimes it's important to have a bit of history alongside the thing, but I didn't want it to be presented in a way that read like a textbook. Like, that's a great example. Like, look how it just sits out.
Yeah, the way it pops out.
It just looks like it's
That's
3D.
lovely.
And that's got a purplish hue,
Yeah.
but this most recent one has a bluish hue, which I think works best. I wanted it to look like an art book, but have a conversational style. And I worked very closely with Daniel Richler, who helped me express myself accurately. The narrative becomes experiential. I want people to feel like they're reading the book and that we're sitting like this and we're talking about these instruments. That's really what I was after. I wanted to invite people into this little room, pick up a bass and talk about it. First of all, it's a custom color, pre-CBS concentric knob, so
Everything is correct.
just right.
The concentric knobs, these stack knobs, the fact that it doesn't have the painted headstock, it all points to this couple of months period of time that Fender was making these things.
They were not using that green guard for anything, any jazz basses at the time. They were using tortoise guards, so the only time you would see that guard was with a custom color.
You don't have to be a fan of vintage guitars. You don't have to be a fan of vintage basses. But if you're a fan of rock and roll music, there's, in a sense, a different kind of history of rock and roll music that exists
Oh, for sure.
in these basses and in the showing of these basses.
I mean, this is the first iteration of this style of the EB2. You know, they're very, very low production, and it's still, you know, it still has the banjo tuners, which were a continuation of the original.
The banjo tuners are interesting because I love the look of them. I love the way they make the headstock look so sleek.
Yeah.
But I can't say they're the most effective for a bass, because some of them that I have,
Yeah.
It's a lot of turning.
it's a lot of turning to get it in tune. So
Yeah.
I understand why they moved away from it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just love the look of them. Photographing these basses was a much bigger endeavor than I ever anticipated. We basically built a studio in the attic of my house, a photographic studio, that had various setups in each corner of the room. These are pieces of mid-century art to me, and I wanted the photography to reflect that. I wanted some of these shots to be able to stand on their own as abstract work. If you saw some of these photographs just hanging there on a poster, you'd say, wow, what a great photograph. So that's what I wanted Richard to achieve, and he went, you know, down that road and he did a marvelous job. He was full of surprises. Sometimes he would be shooting, you know, the bridge or the knobs or some tiny little detail on a bass, but when you see it, when you see the end result, it's just stunning. It transcends the instrument.